Welcome to the end of March social media updates. It's that time again, has come round very quickly. Andy and I were just saying, oh, it feels a bit quieter this month. So we hope we haven't jinxed the news agenda for the next few days and something happens. But we know that we've still got plenty to talk about. So thank you all for joining us, whether you're watching this live or watching it recorded. If you are watching it live, there is a chat on the screen. So please do say hello, where you're from, comment as we go through with the trends and updates. So, as always, we'll do a bit of an intro, start with data, then go into platform by platform updates. I'm sure most of us have met before. You've seen us, so we'll skip through this a little bit because it always feels a bit weird, doesn't it? As well. I'm Luan. This is Andy. We're helping you to stay in the know. You can get a copy of these slides as well as the recording. So do the old zap your screen now or take a screenshot, come back to it later. We know that many of you use these slide decks to update your teams and colleagues after the session as well. Let's talk about some events. Oh no, connect with us. This is us 4 or 5 months ago at the front of a busy room in London. More on that in a minute. We would love you to connect with us because we don't save all the updates for the end of the month. We both share them and lots of other stuff and insights on our LinkedIn profiles. So that's me on the left, Andy on the right. Scan those in and find us on LinkedIn. And for anyone that knows where I live, that's the village bells that always go off a few minutes late. So if you're hearing 10 bells in the background, 11, I apologise. I live in a small village. Andy and I co-host our event in November, more on that in a second, but we are super excited that we will be part of the Social Day Social Media Fest in London. It's a 3-day event, 20th to the 22nd of May at a place called Phantom Peak. I've no idea actually where in London that is at the moment. Andy, do you?
No,
I was
no idea.
Travel directions for the day before. Presentation prep, we've started. Andy and I will be opening the event on the 20th with a live, real live social media updates. We've never actually done it standing next to each other, have we? So we'll have to see how that goes. And then on day 3, we will be back again because we are co-hosting the B2B track on the final day in the afternoon. So if you do have an opportunity to come to London, come to the event, join us and many other wonderful speakers, please do let us know. And if you use the code LuanAndy150, you can also get a discount on your ticket.
Do you want to say what the discount is? Because it's rather good.
Oh, it's £150.
Yeah,
it's the 150.
Yeah, rather generous, I think. So this is great. If you've been to Social Day before, you know what it's all about. You know how good it is. Lucy has pulled out all the stops this year. So Lucy Hall's the person that organised it. And if you've been before, you know what it's all about. If you haven't been before, you're in for a treat. And I think this year is going to be even better than the 6 years that I've been going. Maybe 7 now. I forget how old I am. But there is no better collection of social media folk and content that happens in the country. So I think, this is a fantastic one to come to. And of course, events can be expensive in terms of time, resource, and the money. Hopefully this discount code helps as well. But more events, Luan.
Yeah, we are doing the same again in London. We have finished our plans. We know what's going on. We know who the speakers are, but we're not going to share it with you just yet because we don't want to. We don't want to share it with you yet. We think it's amazing, but we're going to wait until the May event so that everyone comes along to the May event, gets a taster, enjoys Social Day, and then for those of you that really want to focus in on a whole day of B2B, but it will be presentations, it will be fireside chats, it will be discussions. We're going back to the same venue in Shoreditch. I know how to get to that one, and it will be on the 12th of November. Super early bird tickets are on sale at the moment. We know we're not sharing with you what the agenda is, but we will give you a few weeks once we release the agenda before we start changing how tickets and everything work. So put it in your diaries. If you trust us to pull together an amazing agenda, book early. If not, we'll be sharing that at the end of May.
Yeah, I love that. And just another quick call out. We got some feedback from last time that the peer learning was really valuable. So we're going to lean more into that. So we'll have a room. If you work in B2B, this is definitely the thing for you. So where you've obviously got a whole range of content and speakers to learn from, but we're also leaning into opportunities to learn from those that we work with in the industry. I actually, personally, I get the most value from that kind of stuff as well, where you can hear other people's challenges and what others are doing to resolve certain challenges in B2B marketing, which, as we all know in marketing, whether we're in B2B or B2C, we know that we're always asked to do more with less. So figuring out how other people are resolving their marketing challenges, incredibly valuable. And also making new connections is what we need in this industry. So I hope you'll love it. So before we get into today, a little call out, because our wonderful friends at Mentionlytics, who I've known personally for many years, I have used them, continue to use them, and recommend them heavily. So this is a paid ad slot. So just for full transparency, Mentionlytics is possibly one of the most important parts to put in a social media toolkit if you're not using it already. A really, really powerful way to help us understand what people are saying at scale. And as you would have heard me say ad infinitum for the last 10 years, has always been like, social media is all about what other people say about you, not what you say about yourself. So it's very important to understand the sentiment. And the bit that I always nerd out about, which is my extraction of all of the nonsense that happens in social media, all of like the little metrics that we fixate over, like views, engagement rates. If I could just take one metric, it would be share of voice, and see how our overall presence and our share of the conversation on social media compares to our competitors. This has been the only data point I've ever shared with executives, investors, anyone that doesn't understand social media at the detail nerdy level like we geek out on all the time. This elevates the conversation of social at an executive level to help them understand, actually, share of voice has a directly correlated effect on market share. So if you want to win more business, and if you want to build your brand, you need to ensure that your share of voice is outweighing your competitors. So tools that we can do this with have typically been really expensive. And because I'm a cheapskate, I like to use tools that I can afford and have been able to afford as running a small business over the last 10 or so years. Mentionlytics has been that platform. Two very important updates, actually. We often hear a lot about Blue Sky, and one of the most important things before we start jumping into a new platform and creating content for a new platform, we need to understand what people are saying. And this gives us an opportunity now to monitor what's happening on Blue Sky, which I think is just a very pointed example, but a fantastic way of helping us before, Luan, you always talk about this. It's like, social media is not a new platform. It's not just about like, oh, there's a new platform, we need to create content for it. Staying in a listening mode first will always serve us well over a long time, helps us build more solid strategies, and we get a better picture as to where our audiences are spending time and what they're talking about. So all of this stuff to say, Mentionlytics is a very powerful product, and I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't like it so much. So there you go. Data and trends. You'll know, and you've already kind of laid it down, Luan. So if you're joining us for the first time, you'll know the flow by now. If you're new here, data and trends first, network by network, going through all the different feature updates. So let's start here with this rather large number, which is YouTube is now the primary place where people consume podcasts. Podcasting growth continues to rise. And I'm sure we've all seen enough and watched enough podcasts, but there continues to be headroom in the market and people continue to consume podcasts. I think this is a really reassuring statistic to look at, because yes, we see lots of people creating podcasts, but actually, are people consuming them? And the answer is yes, and increasingly so on YouTube. YouTube have now overtaken Spotify in terms of the place that people most frequently consume podcasts. And that also leads into the fact that, we saw a boom of podcasts for 5 years ago for obvious reasons, right? Situational reasons. And that's where Spotify and Apple Podcasts were leading here. But increasingly, people are now consuming podcasts, not just on a walk listening to it for their headphones. They're actually consuming video podcasts increasingly. So YouTube, very powerful for that. Anything you want to add here, Luan, before we move on?
I was just going to say two things. One, if you're ever a podcast guest, you now have to think that you're going to be on video and not just audio. So there's a whole different level of preparation for podcasts now compared to what they were. we'd love to know what podcasts you listen to. Which ones are out there? Are you listening to any for social media or any business news updates? Share in the chat. We always find people. That's how I find new podcasts, is from recommendations. So pop it in the chat.
Love it. And this is just a kind of more of an interesting stat, not directly correlated to our biz, but I think has some interesting impacts on how we think about YouTube as businesses. So YouTube business or advertising business alone is nearly as big as Netflix. And the reason there's a comparison chart here is, and the reason this is interesting, is that about 6 months ago, Netflix or YouTube overtook Netflix as the #1 streaming TV platform. So people are more likely to go onto YouTube to watch something sat on their connected TV on their sofa at home than they are to watch something on Netflix. That speaks huge volumes for the shift in consumption habits of YouTube content. And for us as businesses, that is incredible opportunity. And when you start to think about the opportunity that exists across so many different paradigms on YouTube, rather, podcasts, we've already spoken about. YouTube Shorts is on an incredible growth clip at the moment. You might remember from last month's session where we showed that YouTube Shorts is a platform delivering the most reach, organic reach, compared to any other platform or content format right now. So YouTube Shorts, fantastic for discoverability. And then we consider that so much of YouTube content is being consumed on connected TVs. I think that's typically just been the preserve of larger brands, being able to get the mind share of individuals whilst they're sat at home watching television, they're kind of like downtime. I think this is incredibly powerful. And I've said this so many times over the last 5 years that we've been doing this, Luan, just YouTube is a constantly slept on platform as part of content strategy. It is so important. And I wish I'd lead into this earlier. So there you go. There's my pitch on YouTube. But what would you say, Luan?
Well, I'll share. In our house, Sunday evenings is YouTube night, and we go through our subscriptions and we watch all the weekly updates. But we watch it on our TV, so yeah, it is kind of that TV channel, isn't it? Andy, do you know where this slide is from? Can we add that into the deck?
I didn't put it on the deck, but I can share this.
Yeah. Thanks, Fran. Check your sources.
Yeah, good call out. Yeah. So
yeah, we'll add those in.
Cool. All right. So this data from HubSpot, and I found this really interesting. So this is a slightly nerdy slide, so excuse the slightly poor presentation of it, but let me orientate you around it really quickly. This is the channels that are delivering the most ROI. So paid social content, I think that's probably understandable, right? Because it's the most directly attributable. So it's easiest to track as to ROI. And here, I don't think there's probably any big surprises to where those ROI, most trackable things, website, blog, SEO, easily attributable. We can easily see lead sources and how SEO correlates to revenue. That's always been easy enough. But the interesting thing about this is that when you overlay this, and the next question that HubSpot asked in this report, this was to 400 marketers across small and mid-sized businesses. The next slide was very interesting. Is like, all right, given that you know where your ROI is coming from, and this is where your bets are placed in terms of ROI, what are you investing more in? So over the course of 2025, what channels are you investing more in? And I found it fascinating to see organic social content leading, right? Because you look at the previous slide and you see organic social content ranks about 13%. So its index is fairly low in terms of how we can attribute ROI on the platform. We all know this. There's obvious reasons. Likely it does contribute much more ROI than we actually know or can directly attract, which we know has always been a problem of social and how we justify success. Hence me always talking about share of voice, etc. But I think I take a very positive signal from this data. So the fact that, yeah, marketers know where the ROI is coming from, but actually are getting slightly more cognizant of the fact that they don't necessarily need to follow just truly easily attributable ROI to define where their investments are going. Clearly, marketers are seeing much more value in organic social content and creating more of it. Of course, paid social still indexes fairly highly, but not as highly as email marketing or website blog and SEO, for example. But when you look how close these numbers are, organic social is actually quite far ahead. So I see this as a positive signal, personally,
Mhm.
that brands are looking beyond just the simple, easy to attribute numbers. That's my take. Maybe I'm being overly generous and positive here, Luan, but what do you think?
We've got to be positive. That's our stance. I think there's always been a few things for me, and in research I've done and writing, is that actually knowing what you're going to measure and what success looks like is often one of the biggest challenges in marketing and social media as well. So to actually have such a breadth of this is what we're measuring and what ROI means is a good thing and something that people need to concentrate on. I think on this side, the interesting thing is like, what is the word investing? Because some of us immediately would go, oh, budget. But it's not. It could just be time and other
Mm,
resources, not necessarily in-house. It could be, we talk a lot about collabs and partnerships and influencers as well. So I think, again, there's a big breadth in here, and we're not saying in these sessions that you need to do all of this or none of this. But I think knowing what ROI means to you, and then that you invest time, resources, money into what's going to drive those results, are the two key takeaways. On the organic content, I'm quite pleased about this because I'm currently writing a deck for next week. If anyone's in Birmingham on Tuesday evening, there's a free event not far from New Street Station. I know where I'm going for that one. I will be delivering a talk on Is Organic Social Dead? So I've now got some insight I can use to support it.
nice. I saw your post on that one this morning, actually, and I had to stop myself from responding with a simple no, I don't think it is, Luan, but you knew that anyway. So, um,
Don't give my answer away.
right, engagement rates. So from our friends at Hootsuite, so these are the platforms that are topping engagement rates right now, and this also backs up some data that we saw last month from Metrical related to how well LinkedIn is performing right now from an engagement rate perspective. Again, engagement rates aren't necessarily the deciding factor as to what platform you prioritize or not. It just means that the content typically is getting served to those that are most likely to interact with it, which I think is a very encouraging thing. And the reason that you see platforms kind of dropping a little bit, like Reels in particular has gone back a little bit. Reels continues to try and find its place, as it still is a fantastic platform for distribution, top of funnel reach, but not necessarily as strong as it relates to getting people to interact on your content. But again, engagement rates are not the be all and end all. Increasingly across social, especially as it relates to video and short form video, watch time is becoming, and views overall are becoming, the primary metrics, really like leaning into that whole kind of top of funnel discovery kind of piece. But yeah, it's very nice to see LinkedIn at the top, because it's been unloved, and we don't often see LinkedIn performing well in these kind of like data top of the pops type of data here. So it's very nice to see LinkedIn performing well. Any views on this one, Luan?
I will say it. X is still in there.
Yeah.
X and Twitter is still in there in terms of engagement. I think when we present these data, and I think we would say about any benchmark or industry reports, like, this is a snapshot, very often like not sector specific. We usually global as well, so it is a snapshot, but it does give us some valuable insights into what's happening, what we might need to do or shift, or to use this as a way to educate others as to what's happening in the industry. My only slight challenge on like overall engagement rates is there's no sentiment support on this as well. So engagement can sometimes be spammy, it can be negative versus positive. So it is an overview, but we all like to use data to tell stories and to support our recommendations and advice. But yeah, I'm pleased LinkedIn is at the top. Not surprised Facebook is at the bottom, but X, Twitter, the big debate: should we stay? Should we go? The data is still giving us some insights.
Yeah, agreed. Some best times to post stuff. Again, I think everything you've just said there, Luan, you could apply to what I'm going to share over the next 5 slides, which is, this is aggregated stuff. Use it as a guide. Hopefully it's helpful. Maybe you can use it to influence others, but the real answer typically lies in your own data and your own understanding of your audience. Now,
Yeah.
with that caveat out of the way, let's talk about what the kind of generic numbers look like. Typically, Instagram indexes the darker colors indicate rather, they indicate where the most amount of engagement is happening. So that's where it's happening, typically morning times and around like a Sunday afternoon, typically, and pretty dark throughout the whole course of Saturday. Interestingly, I think this is something that I see this data, and I often underestimate the impact of social at the weekends. I typically think about doing social in the weekdays because, actually, to be honest, the last thing I want to do is spend any time on social media at the weekends, if I'm honest. But there's actually a lot of missed opportunity for brands not posting at a weekend, provided you're posting something that's relevant, interesting, when we're safe in the knowledge that people are in a different mindset when they're scrolling on a weekend. But I think there's still opportunities on weekends for sure. Facebook is actually real kind of very clear to see where the engagement is happening, typically across mornings. LinkedIn, again, mostly mornings. Tuesdays, it's always used to be Tuesdays and Thursdays had been the thing, but it's increasingly it's starting to become Friday, which is fascinating to me. So that is very interesting. So I might be taking something from this data to learn from it. X, very, very curious. That's on kind of Monday and Tuesday where the most heavyweight engagement is. And TikTok is possibly the only one that really bucks the trend, where the engagement typically shifts more into afternoon and evenings. And as you can see, it's far less in the morning on TikTok as it is in the afternoon. And particularly, Saturday nights, the doom scroll on a Saturday night. So it's very interesting to see some of these trends. Again, your understanding of who you serve and your audience is everything in this. But hopefully it might give you some other avenues to explore. Certainly it has for me from LinkedIn. I'm going to experiment more on a Friday to see whether that helps, because I typically have always avoided Friday. So let's see.
I think just going back, Andy, I just want to say that while it's hard to take these kind of best times to post and don't fixate too much on all this time slot. I think what's the important takeaway here is that each platform is different in terms of user behaviors and when they go on there. So, we can summarize that TikTok is possibly for entertainment and towards the end of the day, whereas LinkedIn is for our news at certain points in the week. So when we have a mix of platforms that we're using, we're not doing everything at one point in time. We're scheduling, or we're staggering, or we're thinking about the context and the mindset and the behaviors of our users within this as well. I think, Andy, I've seen some Fridays on LinkedIn be particularly effective. I tend to use Fridays for my messaging and notifications and kind of one-to-one stuff, and found it to be more responsive. Maybe because we've switched back into hybrid working, and often people, I believe, that Fridays are like work from home days and catch up, where we get all our meetings done earlier in the week.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's good to know. Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, Luan. So thanks for sharing that. Cool. Longer videos on TikTok. There is generally a trend across short form video, whether it's YouTube Shorts, Reels, TikTok, etc. They're all pushing towards longer videos. TikTok, YouTube have just enabled 3-minute long shorts. Instagram Reels did 3 minutes and now have started promoting 3 minutes in the Reels feed as well. So they seem to be shifting more towards longer content. That doesn't necessarily mean that we all need to make our content longer. And there is, again, just preempting a question, because we get it all the time, like there is no single best duration of content, right? Your videos should be as long as they need to be, provided that they're interesting and relevant, engaging. If they end up as 20 seconds or 2 minutes, doesn't matter. It's all about whether it actually tells the story most effectively. That being said, however, it is important for us to understand some of the macro shifts that are happening on social. And typically, as we know, they're all locked in a war for attention. And
Mhm.
this is why all of the social networks, as you've seen across our updates, if you've been following our updates for months or years, and thank you if you have, you'll see that increasingly that the focus of these platforms, when I say these platforms, I'm specifically thinking Facebook, Insta, YouTube, and TikTok. So those kind of key four. Increasingly, those platforms are indexing more towards views rather than any form of engagement. And that's why they've changed their primary metrics on Instagram, for example, where it prioritizes views. And that's the number one thing. So with that said, as I'm sure you've probably been reading the slide as I'm kind of giving the context here, is that the really interesting thing is that 86% of all videos posted to TikTok are under a minute, but it's actually those 14% that are over a minute that's driving 42% more reach and 63% more watch time. And it's that watch time piece that we're starting to see across those four platforms I mentioned to be a really important signal for whether that content's going to be pushed to more people. Because quite frankly, if your content is keeping people on the platform for longer, naturally the platform is going to want to reward that by giving you more reach and pushing it to more people. Because if your content's retaining people for a minute, whatever, retaining people for a minute, it's going to want to push it further. And this is a reason that we'll see this later on. We're going to see some Instagram update. I won't spoil it, but Luan share an Instagram update that really does like hammer home this point. But I found this fascinating. I can't validate it personally because my content, as you can tell, you know me by now, I'm very verbose. So I can't do a video that's under 90 seconds personally. And I've only ever posted 90-second TikTok. So I don't know whether they have done better than ones that haven't, that were under 90 seconds. But either way, I think the positive bit and the final thing I'll say is that this gives us more surface area to be creative with. It's much easier to create a video that's 60 to 90 seconds than it is to create something compelling in 15 seconds. So I think this does provide us with more opportunity to be creative, to tell good stories, and hopefully drive some additional reach upside through this. Long narrative, but I think it's an important one. So over to you, Luan.
I'm only going to add on this. This one makes me smile because I include 3 research reports in my weekly email newsletter, and this headline got significantly more clicks than the other 2 I included. So, you know, people like to know this stuff, which is why we're sharing it with you. All I would say on this is don't try and make them longer just by waffling at the beginning. You've still got to jump straight into your topic
Yep.
to keep people watching. We don't want the hi guys or a pause or wait till you come on. Just get straight in, because actually, even if people miss it, they can watch again, and that contributes to watch time. So don't just try and drag it out for the sake of it.
Agreed. Right then, everyone gets a break from me waffling for a bit. Over to you, Luan.
My turn. So we will now go through platform by platform, some new features and what's happening. Take from this what you need. You don't need to do anything or everything. There's not actually so many this month, which is why we've concentrated on the data. But let's have a look what our Meta doing. Separate app for Reels. We tend to try and focus on what's actually happening rather than what we hear about being tested or trialed. But this is, if it happens, is significant. Will they separate out Reels into a separate app? I'm not really sure that this is going to happen, but it's interesting that the story is circulating. Do you think it's going to happen? Prediction?
I'm going to think it. I think it will, but then
Okay.
I think they'll also kill it. To be honest, I think it's just going to cause a whole bunch of confusion. As it was kind of quiet in the news as well, but somewhat related. TikTok released their Notes app maybe a year ago. Can't quite remember, which was basically TikTok for images, basically TikTok's Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah, and they closed it this
They've
week.
killed it.
They
Yeah.
killed it. So, and because they realized that when you shift away from your primary focus, it's even if you're Meta or TikTok and you've got all this attention, it's really hard to build a new habit. You know, it's been super hard for Threads to gain traction too. So yeah, I still think they might try it, but anyway, hopefully they don't. Is where I'm at.
Yes, we're still living with the changing from squares to rectangles, aren't we?
Yeah,
So
indeed.
I don't want them to separate it out. We haven't mentioned AI for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
AI chatbots, features. Hello to anyone that saw me in Oxford last week talking about AI. AI chatbots are now coming to the EU. There is a lot surrounding this in terms of permissions and compliance and data privacy. Just keep an eye out for them and the features being added. We're not going to dive too deep into AI today. Facebook have made some changes as well. Really nothing drastic, and things that we might have expected is already there or is in their other apps, is now being able to draft your Facebook stories. Sometimes this comes with like the weekend working or prep coming together, but being able to create and save those as drafts. Scheduling Facebook Reels, again, something I was like, oh, do we not already have that?
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's interesting that there's more happening within the app rather than relying on our third-party tools for scheduling. So if you want to schedule Facebook Reels, you can now do it in app. This is an interesting one. This is going back to your point, Andy, about kind of features and how the platforms evolve. Stories were stories, but now alternative options like photo collages, multiple video clips to create a story. I'd love to know in the chat, are people specifically creating reels and stories for Facebook? Are you simply copying them over from Instagram first? That's my approach to doing it. And we haven't had anything on creator and monetization for a while. We know that these opportunities exist, and it's something that the platforms were leaning into quite heavily last year around creator accounts and monetization opportunities. This new opportunity, Facebook enabling creators to get paid for stories views. This is part of the existing monetization program. If you're in that, you don't need to do anything else, anything new, apart from maybe do more stories. I think this, when I was reading the article, is linked potentially to what's happening or not happening in the States around TikTok and trying to lure creators from TikTok over to Meta. Couple of weeks away from that decision happening.
Indeed.
Yes. Instagram. I think we all, when we see Missouri, hopefully you are all following Adam Missouri. If you're an Instagram user, we see him pop up on our feeds, sharing updates, doing Ask Me Anythings. It's always US time, so it's the end of our working week, but he is letting us know what's happening, what they're thinking about, what they're trialing, what they're stopping. And one of his Ask Me Anythings in the last couple of weeks was around this watch time that we've just been talking about in kind of longer form, and what does that mean? And this isn't simple, but they do not clarify watch time by a fixed number of seconds. It is to do with the overall length of the reel as to what they count in their metrics as watch time. So we can't kind of game it too much on the length of the reel and what watch time is. It's relative to the overall length.
And this is a very important clarification point, because it used to be,
Yeah.
and we've
3
been
seconds.
for 3 seconds, or like completion rate of a video. And that's less important, because I always thought it was where it was commonly known, where if you optimize towards short videos on Instagram Reels, rather, optimized towards short, people watch the end and it will replay again. So that typically was a great signal. But this is a very important clarification point, and I think just makes life a lot easier, right? So just if you can get people watching for longer, then your content will do better. Nice, simple mental model there.
Yeah. People are commenting in the chat, just copying them over from Instagram to Facebook.
Yeah, cool. Makes perfect sense.
And again, Instagram, not just follow Adam Missouri, follow their creators account. They're sharing top tips. The two don't always correlate, actually. In sometimes what the creators account is saying and what Adam Missouri is telling us to update. But, we'll take advice straight from source. I don't think there's anything new here in that they're telling us that a lot of time spent on Instagram is on Reels. What can help? Liking and replying to comments. Well, this is social media, so you should be doing that anyway. Share when your audience is online. We talked about best times to post, answers in your own data, good quality video. And I think this is their request more than anything, that you post content on Instagram at the same time as other platforms. So I think in the past we've often seen that Instagram reels and content, particularly trends, lags a bit behind TikTok. They want it first, so that's what they're telling us they want. We don't want clickbait, we don't want third-party watermarks. Keep it below 3 minutes. Quality and original content is what they want as well. So nothing new, but good to have it reinforced and summarized.
Agreed.
Preview subscriber only content. This comes back to the monetization and people building their subscriptions and kind of paywalls on here. I think now giving people an idea of what they'll get if they subscribe. It's what we want, isn't it? We're not going to pay for things until we have an idea. So is anyone doing subscriber paywalled content on Instagram? I haven't seen too much of it, but a bit like you, Andy, I don't pay for subscriptions and tools unless I need to.
Yeah, exactly. But I think overall it's interesting to see a few more of these, to your point earlier, actually, Luan, like a few more of these creator orientated tools coming to the fore again, which I think, yeah, I think your assertion is probably correct of Meta trying to ready their house just in case TikTok crumbles, because there'll be a lot of people that rely on TikTok, not just for their content distribution, but in terms of building, having their
business,
own job, right? So,
yeah.
So I think this is a really important one. And overall, I did see some data this week, actually, which I didn't put in the slide. It's just big. The creator economy has 200 million people worldwide as part of it, but over the next year is projected to grow another 80 million creators in it. So when you think the creator economy is becoming increasingly large, it makes a whole ton of sense that the platform support it. But then from a business perspective, the way that we should be thinking about this is not about like, why would I as a business have a subscriber only content? I'm not going to do that. The actual opportunity is with more of these tools and more creators coming into the economy and more of these tools to support them, that gives us more opportunities to forge collaborations and work with the people that are creating these micro communities across the internet, because that's the thing that's really going to drive our distribution on social. Basically, influencer marketing at the kind of nano level is, I think, where a lot of opportunity on social is going to be over the next year, to me personally. And that's why all these tools are very important for them.
Yeah, completely agree. Sharing stories to group chats. This harks back to what we've seen and talked about over the past few months, that people are sharing less in the comments and publicly and sharing more with their friends and family, and how Instagram have changed their metrics to that, talking about sends and shares as well. So now being able to share stories to group chats, again, why wasn't it there? Hadn't thought about it. Instagram best practices. Again, I don't know if you're seeing in the app, but there's always like prompts now, or go here and go there. If in app we're getting advice on our content and feedback and best practices, again, take it straight from source. It's always the best place. And this is one from this week. Not only TikTok removing their notes kind of format, but Instagram, if anyone remembers, did have the opportunity to add a note onto someone's feed post or reel. It didn't take off, so they've removed it.
Yeah, interesting. They've gone.
I quite liked the concept of it, but didn't really do it because you didn't see it very much.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like there was a lot of noise about notes, but it seems to have gone very quiet again. So
yeah.
But I'm also, I think I would categorize myself as too old really to understand notes on Instagram. So it's typically used by, I sound old, like used by people younger than me. So I don't really understand the utility of them, but Gen Zs, Gen Alphas seem to love it. So there you go.
I think there's slightly different about the notes that are in your DMs, that is like your status update or what you're working on, where you are today, which is very old school MSN. Updates now disappearing. This was when you wanted to add a note onto someone's post. So I think this is more indicative of people not doing things publicly, but doing things with their friends and family.
That makes sense.
A bit contradictory. LinkedIn have made some changes as well. They are still performing. Their data, is always record-breaking data. 1 billion members, 200 countries and regions worldwide, and continues to grow. Adding video to newsletters big fan of LinkedIn newsletters, been talking about them for a while. Repurpose existing email newsletters if you've got them, do a different format on LinkedIn, get your subscribers. They're giving us more data. They are now giving us features to be able to embed native videos into the longer form content on LinkedIn. So if you're not doing it, I would recommend. I don't always go, here's a new feature, go and try it. But I am a fan of LinkedIn newsletters.
Yeah, love this.
And Campaign Manager. This is from this week. LinkedIn Ads, they've been working on this as well. There's a few changes here. Easier to use and coordinate and manage dashboards to get clearer visibility on your results. Now a results forecast as you're setting up your ads, media planning. They say it is quite accurate in terms of their forecasting. Users need to wait and see, but that's always a valuable tool at the planning stage. And one of the other changes in here is dynamic UTMs as well. We don't talk about that very often in terms of website traffic, but of course it goes back to your ROI. It is about paid ads and driving traffic. And, we shouldn't forget the good old UTM to be able to measure what we're doing.
Love that.
X, still there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Communities is, we don't talk about it very often. I'm still there, lurking more than posting. I still think it's a great listening tool if you want to know what is happening in the world and what people think about it. So I'm there for the listening rather than the posting. Adding new filter options to X communities. We always appreciate filters to find things easier or to remove things. Over to you, Mr. TikTok.
TikTok, yeah. Now you can create templates out of content that you like, you've seen, etc. So a great way of building off things, standing on the shoulders of giants, put it that way. Find something that you like, save it as a template, remix it as your own. So I think it's a really useful way of lowering the barriers to creativity too. Would be more challenging though, for more kind of like branded content, if you will. But again, I'm all for anything that helps people that don't often create video express themselves through this type of medium. So do like it. Threads, a couple of useful updates to Threads. Basically, they've just gone through the best hits of X or Twitter. Of all the features that people loved on Twitter, they've just taken them and built them for themselves, which, I respect that. So we can now limit replies to people that are just following you, which is always great just to have a bit of nicer conversation, especially if you've maybe got a slightly contrarian take. Sometimes you just don't really want the load of heat that might follow. So I think this is a nicer way of doing this. Right, topic tags, super important. It's probably the most important update from Threads. Not probably, definitely is. They're now prompting you to add a topic here. As you can see, this add a topic prompt. And the bit I love, and because I'm a simple guy, I like things that are nice and simple. You can have one topic tag per post. That's the way it should always be. No stuffing of 17 hashtags and something. Just say, I'm talking about cybersecurity. Great. This is what I'm into. There we go. So I think that now they've simplified it. So there's no hashtags on Threads, as we likely know. We've now got the ability to add one single topic. And now they're making topic discovery much easier. And Threads have also come out and said that the Threads posts with topic tags receive more views. I don't know how many more views. They didn't expand on that, but I thought that was interesting enough to report. So yeah, Threads is getting more relevant and more usable and more enjoyable. I'm hearing more and more folk that are finding their tribe more easily and getting involved in these kinds of conversations on Threads. So to a point where I'm like, oh, damn, I'm going to need to jump back in again soon. So yeah,
it's lured you in. And I think I shared last month, it's like, again, it's absolutely fine to be a lurker on a social media platform until you find how it could be a fit for you. And that's what I've been doing. And now I've been more active on there because I've kind of found from observing it a role that it would fill for me and support one part of my work, rather than just diving straight in and kind of being a replacement for Twitter or exactly the same as I'm doing on another platform, which is often how people start. I think we are in the, maybe because we're older, let's watch it, see, oh, that's something that I want to get involved with. And it comes back to community, I think, more than anything.
So
It's not about the broadcasting, the updates, it's the the community.
So if you're willing to share, Luan,
Yeah,
so what
yeah.
role is it playing for you now?
So I've just started a PhD. 2 months in, loving it. Had been watching threads, and as I was applying and going through the process and looking at others, I found that there were a lot of people sharing their PhD journey and tips and advice and tools and things like that. A couple of very specific topic threads. So for me, that is my PhD community support advice place.
Interesting. Okay, so not really as a tool to like build your brand for your consultancy work or anything like that. It's just purely for personal usability.
For
So,
peer-to-peer conversations, as I go through my journey, it will emerge into that because of the topic
yeah,
and what I'm working on. But right now, it's almost like it's at the stage of the journey I'm at with application and what it means and how to work with your supervisors and what you need to think about and the tools that you need and time management. But as everything evolves, as my research evolves, I think it will start to add into different topics.
yeah, I'm with you.
I haven't got it signed off yet, so I can't share my topic, but
Yeah,
I will
got
keep everyone updated.
it. Also, this will really help Threads growth as well, because starting from scratch on anything is no fun at all. Trying to
Mhm.
like build new behaviors and habits is hard, right? We all know that. Um, And so Threads are trying to find a way that you could take the people that you follow on X and bring them onto Threads. So if they're already on Threads, it will automatically follow them. So it kind of makes Threads feel like home straight off the bat. So I think that's really powerful. This is just in test at the moment, but this will be a really important growth lever for them, especially given Threads is becoming more divisive by the day. And I think they'll already this forced a lot of people to jump ship, but probably one of the reasons that people that maybe are less of a fan of what X stands for, but are still there because your community's there. They're still getting engagement, as we shared earlier. Things that will help smooth that journey to another platform is naturally going to have a downstream impact on overall Threads growth, which again starts to make Threads continue to emerge as a really powerful platform to use for our business reasons. 320 million monthly active users now, so still a lot smaller than the kind of main ones that we focus on here as part of these talks, but yeah, it's getting there for sure. A couple of ones on YouTube. We are nearly there. So they've updated Brand Connect. So this is part of like Google Ads. We already showed about how big the YouTube advertising business is. So Brand Connect is a way that you can use this tool to help you connect with influencers for your brand. So again, I already spoke about the power of influencers. Paid media plus influencers is a really powerful way for brands to grow. And these tools allow you to kind of build those influencer relationships and drive this influencer content at scale without requiring the need of an agency, which of course adds quite a lot of expense here. Blue Sky now added videos up to 3 minutes, following the same pattern as everyone else. So as you can see, longer videos is becoming the thing. That's very much the theme for this month. And was there anything else from Blue Sky? No, that was it. That was the main one. And closing out with Reddit, a couple of really important things. Reddit can be a bit of an overwhelming platform to dive into. It's got some really weird subcultures in it too. So I guess it's only weird if you're not part of it. The same way as if you'd see like certain groups of friends as weird, or groups of acquaintances as weird, because you don't know the memes and the way that they speak towards each other. So it's just because you're not part of the inner circle. So that's where Reddit can be a kind of little bit hard to get to become part of or start to become active on because of those reasons. But now they're simplifying these subreddit rules to allow people to know, quite what can you post in there and how should you share. And of course, promotional stuff gets shot down on Reddit very quickly, right? Overly promotional stuff. So it requires a delicacy of touch. And one of these things that allow you to have that delicacy of touch that I talk about, Reddit's kind of making the post creation experience a lot easier by doing a couple of things, giving you some recommendations as to some subreddits that you can be part of, showing you how your reach has changed and some analytics related to that. But again, I think the opportunity with Reddit is like, yeah, there is some visibility benefit of posting in these subreddits and answering questions. So you could be super proactive and have a community management approach to it like that. Being realistic, that's quite a heavy lift approach, and needs dedicated resourcing to facilitate that. So I think for me, the reason I care deeply about Reddit and the role it plays, as I've spoken numerous times before, like tools like Reddit Answers gives us a fantastic snapshot and insight into what people are saying about our industry and our market. And it's that qualitative nuance that we miss from data sometimes, where how are people describing things? What are the problems that people are surfacing? And I spent a huge amount of time in Reddit when I was building Content Cal all these years ago, because I was new into social media marketing, and I really wanted to understand quickly what the problems were in the space so I could truly understand user empathy at scale. And I think far too few marketers think like that. They always think about platforms of like, oh, distribution, how can I get my content in front of more people, without thinking, actually, none of that works without real deep empathy with users. And we don't think about social media in that way enough. So it's kind of the narrative I started with. So we're kind of ending up with that. Anything you want to summarize? Yeah, you do this, please.
So I love that we go, oh, there wasn't many updates to talk about in March, and it's still taken us 55 minutes. YouTube, we've said it before, it's probably both of our biggest regret of not diving into YouTube many, many years ago, but you can't ignore it. It's all about video content as well. So YouTube is important, and LinkedIn also continues to deliver strong organic growth. There's my answer to my talk. LinkedIn newsletters do represent an opportunity to have more ownership over our audience. It's a quick, easy repurpose. The numbers are there. I've seen launches of newsletters get to hundreds, if not thousands, within 24 hours as well. So it's a great opportunity from personal profiles and from company pages as well. On Instagram, it is all about watch time, which is a percentage of the overall length of the video, not something fixed. Videos over 60 seconds, however, so our short form has gone from 60 to 90 to 3 minutes. That's what's getting the reach. And listen to Andy, don't forget about Reddit. Grab yourself a coffee, an afternoon snack, try it out for a bit, understand what it's about, so that when you do want to understand your audiences and insights and listening, it's a brilliant tool for it. And we're done.
That's it.
And we've rounded up. A huge thank you to everyone that has watched us. Again, we really appreciate it and value it. We know many of you watch it live. Many of you do watch it afterwards as well. If you've missed anything, it will be immediately in the place that you're watching this. We can answer questions afterwards. We will be back slightly later because it's an Easter break coming up on the 1st of May for our next session. So I will set all of that up in the usual way. And if there are changes in the meantime, you will see them from our email newsletters on our LinkedIn. We've got April to get through, but May is going to be a big month. Whatever happens in the States with TikTok, we'll be in London at Social Media Fest. Lighter days, lighter evenings. So we're glass half full people. So we'll end it there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you joining.
Take care. Bye.